already good stuff heard in the last hour. So I will pick up and some points already made, and then my story goes a bit faster, and then we can go in the final dialogue with each other. What we are doing in Ghent with working with citizens on the energy shift. First of all, Ghent, the third biggest city in Flanders, in Belgium, have some of the idea how big it is and where is somewhere in Europe and from you guys. So it's in it doesn't shift for a
Let me
moment.
just really briefly, someone pointed out, which is correct, you're not in presentation mode, so we can, you don't worry if you can't fix it quickly, because we don't want to spend time on it. But if
just you're seeing now
yeah,
the double screen you're seeing. Okay, I try to fix that. Yeah, there it is. Normally it should change now. Yeah, no problem. So some facts and figures just to give you an impression of how many we are in Ghent. It's a big student city. So every week they're coming in around 78,000 students and moving away in a weekend. So that's a huge amount of persons. 260 persons living in the city. And if you look into the metropolitan areas, so then we have 500,000 of people. That's not such a huge metropole. If you look to Brussels, that's already 1 million persons. So we are still the half of it. So it's rather a small city in Europe. Voila. We also have our climate goals, like the other speakers. We have our path towards a climate neutral city, and we divide it in several climate plans and tried several methodologies. Like the first one was really like a big step from 2009 to around 2020, doing in 2 steps. But now we have made a climate plan for this legislation. So in 2024, we have to make a new one. And there you see the -40% still in it, but we also have to do our job there to get to the 50 or 55%. I hope our Flemish government will have some agreement for tomorrow before they go into Glasgow. What are we doing in that climate plan? We have different topics in this plan. It's not only on energy. Energy efficiency and renewables are still important, of course, but we have divided in households and companies. I will speak mainly about the households, lesser about the industries and SMEs. Then we have a big job to do on food and food waste and circular food systems. The circular economy is also getting a more important topic for Ghent, because they have to from the EU. But also what we see is how when we do our job better on energy efficiency, you see that embedded carbons get more and more importance. And if you want to get climate neutral, you also have to work on embedded carbon and on material flows. So the circular economy is there a solution. And now we're starting on putting up projects around that theme. And then the last one, climate adaptation, is also a very important one for us, because we are really a city of a lot of concretes. Voila. But going back to the topic of today, energy and energy communities. What are our goals for? We have to go to 80 megawatts of solar PV production. There's a doubling of what is already in the city. Then we also have to have a couple of windmills extra by 2030, and then green heating for the built environment. And we already put in question the fossil-free district, so the gas-free residential areas, which we for the moment have 2 pilots, 2 district pilots up and running, but that's still a very difficult one to do. Also, and that's maybe important to add on that climate plan, there's also a focus on an inclusive transition path. So leaving no one behind is an important one for us. So reducing energy poverty is a priority for this legislation. And we translate that in different policy instruments. For example, we have the energy loan. You have the Flemish energy loan in Flanders, which is 30,000 euros. You can loan until 13,000 euros, but what we see in reality, that's too less. That's not enough to, yeah, take the measurements that are necessary to get your household, because we really have an old stock in the city, and to move that old stock towards energy neutral households, we have to put more investments in that building stock. So it is possible in Ghent to ask an additional loan, which is divided in different incomes categories. So, and that loan is a rolling fund. So if you pay back your money, it goes to the next household or next project. In that sentence, we have a rolling fund, which the incomes of citizens go back to the citizens. Working with crucial actors, also on social housing, we do a lot of work together to make sustainable and healthy houses more accessible for vulnerable households, and then more space for green and blue and vulnerable neighborhoods, because cooling is really an issue for the city, and see how cooling can be delivered by public domain as ecosystem services. So that was what then about citizen engagement before I go into the energy community and how we engage citizens. The city of Ghent really tries to work from the ground up, really bottom up. So everything we want to do for translating the agreed policy by the coalition, we try to implement them through the citizens. You see here, for example, 3 examples. We have Ghent on Garde, and that's our food council. The food council is built together with important actors, but also with citizens active on food in the food system, the broader food system in Ghent. And every year they got a budget, and there's a contest with the question for new innovative ideas around food waste, of reducing food waste and making more circular food chains. Then Circuit Circulaire is also a likewise contest on how we trying to redevelop the linear economy to a more circular one. And also social inclusion is one of the main topics on that. So we have different, for the moment, different project ideas running about chemicals, biochemicals, and repair shops on district level. And then you have the neighborhood budget. Maybe that's already known by some of you, but so we have 25 districts in Ghent, and we divide it in 2 rounds, I think, right? Per 12 districts have an amount of money, a big budget that they can spend on their own, but they have to deliver the ideas themselves. What we're doing with those ideas is screen them and go back to the districts, talk with the citizens like, hey, you have a really nice idea, but if you want to get to climate neutrality, or we want to do something about climate, maybe we can scale up that idea. And what do you think about that? So going into dialogues with citizens is really a nice way, for example, when they have good ideas. But the fossil-free districts is one of the main topics of my team. And there we work on, like I already said, on SMEs and districts, because we have a big harbor. And there we work on residual heat, PV, windmills, but also on hydrogen. And we try to make the connection with the built environment, which is not an easy way to go through, but trying. I'm going to give you some building blocks of how we want to engage with citizens. in this energy transition. So Europe has given us legislation around energy communities, but you still need to organize that. For Flanders, the legislation around energy cooperative of energy communities still doesn't exist, is not yet implemented. So we have to be creative in that way. But if you want to organize it, then already going to look to corporations. We heard already a lot of them. So I'm not going to go in depth in that topic, but because we have in Ghent, which is working on windmills and PV, bigger projects. We have Partago, which is working on shared mobility and electrical mobility. But for example, we also have De Koop, which is delivering residual heat waste to building blocks from industries. And then we have other, Beauvais, for example, is also an energy cooperative who installs big PV installations in the harbor, and through purchase agreements, so the PPAs from the Devon speaker, delivering it to us, for example. So that's another building block, is like we are also can buy renewables, for example, through the PPAs, but I already heard about the Devon story, so that I'm going to drop. But we also facilitate, as a city, renewable energy projects for heat and wind. For example, wind, we can do it by the cooperative. But we can also take initiative in new renewable and wind projects. We have some wind projects in the harbor, and the gains from that, so the profits from that wind projects, are going also to a rolling funds, which means is going to the households of the Ghent citizens. We also have a more or less the same project of our colleague in Athens, but we do it with youth houses. So we have different youth associations in Ghent. We all have buildings, rather big buildings, with no PV on rooftops because it was not payable. But with the new legislation on energy communities, we have a new legislation, and we're going to try to put PV on the youth houses and try to sell it to a more or less a same system like the colleague in Athens. Lowering the threshold for the households is also an important building block for the energy communities, and so therefore we have our energy central. This is an energy advice hub for every citizen. So if you want to install PV or do something about renewables, or want to do isolation works on your house, for all that questions, you can go to the Energy Centrale. And this is a one-stop shop for everything to do, everything you want to do around your house. In 5 years, for example, we have delivered 10,000 advices and created like a 30 million euro investment rate. And we are working with that Energy Centrale, with that rolling fund and subsidies. I'm going to drop the other two to move a bit further. The city as a transition powerhouse. That's our third building block. So we work with associated partners, which are mainly cooperatives. Then we have our Energy Centrale to lowering thresholds. It's really important to make it more accessible, the installation on renewables. But then a third building block, which I believe is very important, is like to see the city as a transition powerhouse. I think we need to shift from building the individual building to a district level, and then you can see the energy community is creating the next city infrastructure and neighborhood services. If you want to talk about energy communities, you really talk about energy infrastructure, and then the local community of the local municipality is one of the most important actors, of directors of the energy transition. and you really to build up that collaborative story. For example, you see here like the heat network. We're looking in depth like how can we build and integrate geothermal energy in public domain. If there is a new road to be put in, if there's some big work on a road, can we match that up with geothermal sources and connect them to a demand of heat in the households of big apartments? So we try to build up a real renewable energy infrastructure for the whole city, district by district. This one you already saw. So we really have collaborative neighborhood storyline. We never go with one project to a district. Why, I don't know for sure, because we really want to make it difficult for ourselves sometimes, I think. But here you see one district and the different projects running there about, for example, 9 here you see is about around greening the neighborhood, adaptation, cooling the city. Here, for example, you see an old church, which we want to put PV on for the neighborhood. Here you see the heat network being integrated. Here you see a water gardening place, which was a demand of the neighborhood. Here you see a first startup for a geothermal garden for the neighborhood. So we really make a patchwork of different renewable projects and try to combine it in one storyline for the neighborhood. Voila. And if you ask me what are some tips and tricks about building up an energy community, then I learned some of these already. Some hard way, some easy way. But if you talk about energy transition, we really need to talk about now, if you want to meet with the 2030 or 2050 goals, speeding up, accelerate already the ideas that you already heard by the other speakers. But citizens are, for me, very crucial in accelerating the energy transition. They are really a most important building block because they really need to go to that front door and ask if they want to put in a heat pump or put PV on their roofs, or just to buy a share in an energy cooperative. So you really need that citizen to accelerate the energy transition. What really is, they all aren't interested in euros. Don't promise euros, create value. If you create value, then you really have a listening hearing. Legislation is behind, it really is. In Flanders, we have really a legislation gap between the goals we need to cope with for energy neutrality. For example, a tax shift is really necessary in Flanders, and we don't have it yet. Know what you are asking from the individual households. Know what is capable for individual households. Like if I look to the cost of renovation, which is immediate 50 until 60,000 euros for a house in Flanders, that's a lot of money. And that's for 60% or 70% of the households in Ghent not possible to give. So we really need to look to new financial solutions. And I think the energy community is one bit of one puzzle of the solution, but isn't the full solution. Involve the citizen from day one and find common interest. If you try to develop a solution, start with talking with the citizens, because they really have ideas about what is going on in the neighborhoods and ideas about making it better for them. So the first step is always for me, talk to the citizens before designing very high-tech stuff. Then the new role for civil servants, we also look to our own team. And for just in September, I hired an energy broker, which is mainly for the industry and also for built environment, building up that energy infrastructure with me and my team, looking for demands and sources. And also, work with an anthropologist. It's like I always worked with engineers and they have really great ideas, but if you want to put them in the ground, you missed something. So we also need to look to new disciplines and be more multidisciplinary in our approach from the local government out, create new partnerships, go to this, create new partnerships. Solution isn't always in the existing partnerships you have with within your city. So be creative with them. We mainly work also with the creative sector, culture houses, and you're also having a very important role in this energy transition. And the last one I really want to recommend to everyone: have great ideas, because we need them. And if you go with them to the citizens, you find a lot of energy to realize them. So that was my story.
Thank you so much.